All right, welcome folks to the Magento Association podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking again to Maier Bianchi of Bemeir Agency. Did I say that right, Maier?
Bemeir, yeah.
Bemeir, there you go, Bemeir. Mayor's here as a agency owner, founder, but also member of the Magento Association, and you do work in memberships. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was enlisted by Noah, who I think is on the I don't know the title, but he's one of the main executive board members, right? And he enlisted me to help join the memberships committee. So now I'm part of the memberships committee of the Magento Association.
Memberships committee, right on. Okay, I'm part of the marketing committee, so
yeah,
I don't get to overlap with your committee, but this is cool. We
overlap. It's all. Yeah, we don't. I guess we don't work together, but I feel like those two committees work so closely together.
Totally. Yeah. I wanted to start this off because I haven't really said this before, and I did a little Google search. And, we're talking about the Magento Association, and I want to read this mission statement and tell me, Mayor, if this sounds right, but what is the Magento Association's mission? It's to advance and empower the global Magento open source community through open collaboration, education, and strategic leadership, ensuring a sustainable, innovative, and accessible future for all who build with Magento. Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds really good, lofty and good.
There you go. That's according to ChatGPT. That's what it is. So there are new overlords. So I guess it's truth now, right? Just lock it in.
I mean, yeah, it's on the homepage, right? Like
right. That's right.
Magento. So but that's about it.
That's it. Okay. So just for context, we're going to talk about memberships, but a couple things to clear up, and not that, people don't know this already that are part of the association or considering joining, but it's a not-for-profit organization. So there's a lot of volunteers, and we need payments to keep the association alive. But the association gives a lot back, does a lot of community work, does a lot to bring thought leadership to the community. So if you are considering being a member, and I'll let Maier talk about this, I want everyone to know that there's a lot of value in it, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of hard work as volunteers. And so there's a lot of goodwill being generated and injected into this community, which is also what makes it such a cool community. So with that in mind, I'll shut up and let our guest talk. Maier, what has your experience in the Magento Association, and what do you see it as being your role? And do you agree with that mission? And kind of what are your hopes for the future of the association in general?
So I think this is a good moment to educate on what the nonprofit is, and then I would love to answer that question further. So, for example, the Magento Association is a 501c6, not a 501c3. And so a 501c6 is an organization that addresses a common or specific business interest. So like your local chamber of commerce is a 501c6, and your contributions to it are tax deductible, but as a business expense, not as a charitable contribution. So it's different from say, I'm supporting the HCMA, which is a nonprofit of a 501c3. And then there's legal requirements in a 501c6, which is operate based on membership. And then it conducts operations to promote the common business interests of members. And so if we only have 100 members, technically the common interest of those 100 members, not the global user base of Magento, right? So if you are in the global user base of Magento, you should want to be a part of the association, because the association exists to help empower these people, right? So I feel like the more members we have, the more skin people have in the game to improve it. So let's go back to your original question. Maybe you can restate it for me, but I wanted to give why the notion of memberships is so important to this type of nonprofit, because it's a member-led nonprofit. It's led for members.
And I'll double down on this. Ben Marks was also telling me there were days where there was no association. And what they realized that there was about 5 billion, according to his estimate, revenues globally coming in through Magento work, Magento agencies doing work on the platform. And there was no common place for people. There was Meet Magento events, but there wasn't a common place for people to get together and say, what are the best practices? What are the standards? What is everyone else doing? How is it? What are you struggling with? What's working for you, et cetera? So tons of value out there in the ecosystem, but without a single place for people to kind of share ideas. And that was the origin of the Magento Association. And now here we are, whatever it is, 10 years later, and still kicking. So my question to you is like, current state of the association is where we're at today. We're kind of through the gold rush of Magento platforming. We're getting to a level of stability, and now we're starting to see a kind of resurgence, I think, in interest around open source. And with AI, there seems to be, and we kind of talked about this offline, there seems to be a renewed interest in building new stuff and new things, and it's kind of creating a lot more energy in the ecosystem. I don't know if you're, getting that from where you sit, Maier, but maybe piggyback on that concept if you agree with it, and then, where we were and where we're going in terms of the association.
I mean, maybe can you phrase it as more of a direct question? And I just wanted to say like because it's harder to answer that, right? Because you're just kind of leading that. So I'm saying like, if we go back for a second, the association existed for 10 years and Magento has been an open source software since 2008, officially 2007. Yeah. So we're coming on 20 years of Magento, right? So shout outs to Magento. I just hit the air horn in case you hear that later. But my point is that in this context of open source software being the antidote, Magento first existed as the antidote to worse open source software, right?
Right.
Better open source software. Until then, you had the SaaS revolution, and you've had these SaaS providers, but open source has never left. So I think we have to stop defining Magento around other ecosystems and other premises, because open source has always been the backbone of everything. And there's still going to continue to be the backbone of everything, because there's always people that need to own their software for business reasons, right? Like, or they don't want to be vendor locked. And so I would say even in the Magento world, there's a strong pull between the hand that feeds us, shout out to Adobe, because people look at them like the bad guy, but they're the ones paying for Magento to exist since they bought it. So they're the primary funders of this association. They help fund a lot of the Magento events around the world. And also they push the core software, and they have these initiatives to work with the community. And so I would say it's a very interesting position we find ourselves in, because it's an open source software that's owned by a publicly traded for-profit company that also has a commercial license version. And so I would just say that that makes it a tricky tightrope walk for people like you and myself who service businesses that use Magento, because depending on what flavor they use. And so going full circle to what you were saying about AI and how the world is evolving now, here's the hard fact. It's never been easier to be a Magento developer. Even though Magento 2 is built on archaic foundational technologies, we have overcome that, through the continued evolution of the platform and how Adobe and other parties have it's keeping up with PHP, it's keeping up with all, the Zen framework's not in it, for better or for worse, but I'm saying there's different evolution that's happened in the software level, and vice versa. I was going somewhere with that, is that Hoover, right? Hoover, if you're a real American, you don't know it's Hoover, but Hoover changed the game, because it was a paid licensed front end that now is free. And by and large, it's become the de facto front end solution for Magento, which was the answer to a lot of this PWA or the archaic front end framework that it stands on still, as the out of the box Luma theme and the Knockout JS and Require JS based architecture. So there's been an antidote to that, which was made, it's about happiness of your developer, right? Of course, it's about site speed and a faster website, but it's also faster time to market, faster development. So now enter the age of AI. Before, what might have taken a larger team or so much complexity or so much more work to plan and execute, AI is the great leveler of the playing field. And so I think, to go back to what you said, that is just a true statement. It's never been an easier time to be a Magento developer and be a Magento merchant. Now the world is fraught with perils because open source and the entire layer of web is under attack because there's more cybersecurity needs now, because AI has made it easier to find 0-day or vulnerabilities in the underlying technology. Every week there's a new Linux vulnerability or a new other vulnerability. Or so just as much as it's easier to develop, it's also easier to exploit. And so I think security posturing is key these days too.
Yeah, I would also argue that it's not like the SaaS platforms are safe. Like, there's vulnerabilities on the SaaS platforms as well. And I think one of the advantages I would argue with open source is those vulnerabilities get noticed very quickly and they get resolved very quickly because you have a whole community of people with eyes on it, right?
Yeah, but there's just as many people who don't know, right? There's just as many people that don't pay attention to what Sansec, shout outs to Sansec, of the security leaders in the Magento world, or what, like, meaning there's people that live under a bridge, or they don't have their platform updated, or they don't believe in having developers around and they have an outdated platform. Those are the ones at risk in these carding attacks and these skimming attacks. And those are the things that every year, it seems, or every other year, is like a extinction level event for Magento. And we keep surviving, right? And like, if you've seen Game of Thrones, what is dead may never die, because it's not actually dead, right? Like, and so my point is, like, Magento is strong as ever, and it's never been a better time to be a user because that software playing field has been leveled.
Yeah.
If you want to update your front end, if you want to update a plugin, if you want to make a custom plugin, well, before, you needed to have a good development environment. You needed to have a good, hey, I need a good, like, there was this, I don't remember what it was, like a plugin for PHP Storm that let you like skeleton a module faster, and all these innovations. Then you have your Marcus Schutz of the world and people providing good development environments and development training. Now we're at the point where you can spin up an instance of Magento on a GitHub code space or some virtual machine, do something, shut it down, develop. Like, the way you can develop is becoming easier and easier. And now with AI, it's becoming even easier to have an effect. So a single developer who before, say a merchant has only room for one developer, no agency, they just have a guy working for them. That guy was the perennial whipping boy, because you can't do anything right. If there's a security thing, if there's we're late on this feature, we got to update that. You can never be ahead of time on your work. But at least now you can do things that add value in a faster way while also keeping up with your requirements. And then taking it to agencies like yours and mine, the same thing. The chore heavy, boring, mind-numbing aspects of development have been lessened by the adoption of AI-assisted software development. The global body of knowledge that is contained in Stack Exchange, which has diminished year over year, is now stolen and lives inside of LLMs, and all the content on the web is accessible in a deeper way. And then when you have your Claude skills, your MCPs, and all these other layers you can put onto your governing framework of how you use AI, it's a golden age if you want it to be. If you want to see it the other way, you can, but it's unequivocally a fact that it's easier to be a developer of Magento right now. It's easier to be a user because you can get more bang for your buck.
Yeah. I'd also say, if you're one of those businesses where we hear this a lot, my business is way too complex. Our buying process is too complex. Our B2B workflows require human intervention, and software would never be able to do this. Now is the time to reassess some of those workflows and some of those business rules, because there are tools now that you can deploy, and open source software, Magento specifically, is an excellent starting point if you're not on it already, to maybe try mapping out some of your business rules and solving some of these problems. It's also a great core to build something that might be, if you're an agency, industry specific. So you know that, like, this industry always needs these things. These are their challenges. You could build an industry specific solution on this platform, and you could brand it as something specific to an industry because it's open source. This could be the motor underneath,
Yes, that's a really good point too. Like in the heyday of Magento, a lot of people did that, right? Or like I said, we're still in some form of heyday. But the point is like people do that all the time, right? Like they make a companion solution and offer it together.
Right. I also think that if you look at the data, there was a lot of messaging out there online, particularly on LinkedIn, about, Magento's dying. Like we've been hearing this stuff forever. But if you do the research, there is so many businesses out there using Magento that don't talk about it. It does a lot of heavy lifting in e-commerce, particularly B2B e-commerce. Yeah. And it's not going away because businesses...
Keep going.
No, go ahead.
No, keep going.
No, I'm just saying,
I interrupted you.
There's a foundation of value that's built. A lot of these businesses have no interest in replatforming or scrapping that investment. So they're looking at improving on what they've built. And because there's so many legacy solutions out there already, it's also still a very viable starting point from scratch.
I think so. I would be inclined to agree with you. And I want everyone who says the platform is dying to go ahead and quit so there's more work for guys like Matt and myself. Please quit. Yes, it's dying for you. Go. Change your business model. Get out of here. Because that is the unequivocal fact. There are so many businesses using it. So many top tier global industry leaders using it. So many businesses you've never heard of using it. That's the point. As long as there are businesses, there will be users. And yes, while the percent of global GMV and all of these other things may change and come and go, if you're starting a business today, you're starting an e-commerce platform today, you can probably count on one hand or two hands viable solutions. And then you're going to quickly eliminate them if your business has a certain level of seriousness. You're not going to build your business on WooCommerce. And then, hey, you can build it on Shopify, but you might realize, hey, these other limitations make it impossible. Well, now you're left with this. Okay, BigCommerce, nope. Okay, so you're down to two mid-market open source e-commerce platforms, which are good, Magento and Shopware.
That's right.
And each of them has their points where they stand out. And then in the higher tier, right, you have Adobe Commerce, which a lot of bigger businesses select because of its SLA and the future forward architecture that they're pushing that doesn't involve the native front ends and so on and so forth. And a lot of this enterprise thinking. And then, composable, et cetera. And then what do you have? You have your commerce tools. You have your Salesforce Commerce Cloud, which probably most users of that, they're not delivering premium experiences on Salesforce Commerce Cloud. From what I'm seeing, it's the legacy of Demandware. And so I would say, what choices do you really have if you're making a serious e-commerce platform? I'm sure there are upstarts that I'm not mentioning, or like Medusa or other things that are like interesting projects. But from a serious ecosystem level investment, you have a handful.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, it always tends to be a credible solution. And like, for example, there was a lighting brand, like a company that sold lighting that we were working with, and they were on some legacy custom built thing and they wanted to migrate, and we're like, yo, you should choose Magento. It's the best fit for your business model because you're doing commercial lighting, whatever. They wanted to do Shopify. They chose Shopify. But at the end of the day, it's just, you can do what you want on different platforms. It's just, again, like there's still a right fit. It's just not everybody wants to do what it takes to get there, or they don't believe in the level of investment. They think of this as a commodity, when in fact, it doesn't have to be a commodity. It could be a weapon. And so I've always preached that, like, use the fact that you have a complex platform as a differentiator. And now going back to the theme of what we're talking about with AI, you can actually be more innovative and make your differentiator more apparent because you can mold it in your image even better. And that's what the open source allows you to do.
Yeah. And there's a lot of businesses out there that don't really... A straightforward e-commerce in a box solution is just not going to work. I mean, particularly for a lot of B2B businesses. And there's also the idea of ownership. Like who has this platform? Who owns this platform? Who owns this data? Open source is a great way to kind of ensure future sovereignty within your data, flexibility to build whatever you need to satisfy your customers, mapping your business rules to the software and not the other, having the software map to your business rules and not the other way around. And plus 20 years of a track record, it's not gonna disappear.
And you also can't reverse proxy download and run a Shopify site from your house, right? Like,
That's right.
and still call it Shopify.
Yeah, that's
in
right.
Magento, your database is yours, your code base is yours.
Mhm.
Yes, if you get deplatformed, like if Amazon decides to kick you off their cloud, or if you run out of hosting partners because you burn them all, which again is theoretically impossible because there's so many Magento specific hosts, let alone if you're going to a cloud vendor yourself, meaning like if you're going natively to AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, etc. But now it is, you could technically keep a backup of your site, spin it up on a Linux box in your house, pipe it to the internet. And as long as you have internet, you could do it. So in the whole world of freedom and who controls the internet and all of those things too, it's still theoretically usable on its own. And I think when you look at more serious businesses, they take that as a threat when someone can literally just disconnect their business, because every second you're down is money and possibly permanent loss to your business, like in terms of like the harm it could do if you were on a platform and got taken down, you know?
Yeah. Well, and we're you know, we get a lot of people talking about the fear of vendor lock-in and getting trapped into platforms, particularly enterprise platforms that you can't deplatform from easily. And the beauty of open source is that you can not only have control and ownership, but you can also control over the rate of investment. So there might be years where you want to invest a lot and then you want to slow down and invest little, and you're not getting hit with, rev share every time an order goes through your website.
Yeah, that's a good story to bring up. We just did a analysis for a brand that's on Magento that we work with that wanted to replatform to Shopify. Well, they're multi-store. You knew they were going to do plus. They're over a certain size. Total cost of ownership was higher. I hate to say it. And you're getting penalized for success because the more you grow, the more you pay. So that's not a value proposition that every business can stomach. And it still was a complex build. It still was complex architecture. There were still complexities involved. At the end of the day, that's just it's a really good point. I forgot. I kind of lost my original train of thought, but I think that's a good example of it.
Rev share and total cost of ownership. Like it's not as straightforward as you might think. And that, I think I would encourage businesses to find a partner and do the math. Like, look at your 5-year window. There might be some more upfront costs to build the solution that you need on Magento, but you might get most of what you want. And that you might be making concessions on another platform. That's, all things that you need to talk to with an implementation partner. But Shopify is not cheaper all the time.
And it's not even not cheaper. It's that people make concessions, and they just make those concessions willingly in the pursuit of simplicity or the pursuit of perceived easiness or the pursuit of what someone says they want. But at the end of the day, they're making concessions, right? They're giving up some freedom. They're giving up some flexibility. They're giving up something like, oh, we had this feature before, we don't have it. Again, that's how you have to know what is important about your platform or what's driving your decision.
Yeah. And to bring this back to membership, I think one of the values of the community, one of the values of membership is that you're going to have other practitioners that you're talking to and meeting and getting to know who are sharing their stories with you, not just solutions that they've built and experiences they've had with their clients, but also ways to talk about the platform and ways to position the platform so that if you want to sell it, you'll know, like, here's the strengths, here's some things that other people are building or other partners that we could bring in on a project, things to kind of build out the solution. So, there might be ideas or things that you didn't even think about, or security stuff like you were mentioning, that are all kind of part of the benefits of the membership, in my mind.
Okay, so if we're going back to the membership benefit conversation about why join the Magento Association, I would say the more collective interest there is, the more collective good an organization could do.
Yeah.
And then the interests of that collective are addressed. Because if you're not in the collective, then how does the collective know what your needs are? And so I think one of the, you spoke with Ben Marks earlier. He was the chief evangelist for Magento for many years, and he was the global face of the brand, like the mascot, if you will, and is also just the person who was like the diplomat, right, the ambassador. Mm-hmm. And so I think in this Magento Association role, he's going to carry a lot of that weight as well. But as a member, your voice would be heard. And it's not just like, oh, some people complaining on the internet. And like, here's the problem that I see is like a lot of the voice of the conversation is dominated by just extension providers and agencies, not so much individual practitioners who work at brands, and most definitely not the managers at brands, and most definitely not the owners of brands. And I think if you knew that there was a donation or a membership due you could pay that would get you access to a greater situation or a different echelon or whatever you want to call it, right? Why do people join Soho House? Why do people join these country clubs? Why do people join these clubs and these organizations, if not to benefit in some way, right? The quality of the rooms you're in, the notion of who you're around. And so I think it's democratized in this world where you can talk to those people anyway a lot of the time. But imagine if there was a more formal way or a more conferred benefit to, hey, I'm a Magento brand operator. I want to talk with other brand operators, and I want to do it in a way where there's an engagement level from Adobe, from many solution providers in the space and technology providers in the space. It makes it a much more mature conversation than just random things or random happenstance and random hearsay. It has real weight to it. And so I think that if you look at a value proposition, the memberships start at $10 a month, $120 a year. You can't buy a monthly recurring. It's like an annual subscription. Hub.magentoassociation.org is the subsite. You just go to magentoassociation.org. And then there's individual membership, bronze, silver, gold, platinum. And then there's also what are called partnerships. I'm just going to look at this thing right here real quick. So for example, in the membership levels, there are, like I said, individual, bronze, silver, gold, platinum. And then I think there's partnerships, it's more like, imagine a more strategic sponsorship. So let's just focus on the member levels. There's a page right now that you get a certain amount of discounts on certain providers, or you get a discount on certifications, or you get discount percentages for events, or you get a discount to the M Academy, learning. And so what's there now is not the best version of what it could be. That's why I'm on the membership committee. That's why we're having these discussions, because we're taking a new direction. We're bringing it forward. But there's also the base is voting rights, right? Like when they're electing board members, you get to vote. And so in the past, it was a Patreon membership in the very early days. And then it transitioned to a more direct system like this, where you can actually it's a Magento based platform. And so I would say we need those voices heard, because a lot of people say, hey, what's in it for me? Why should I spend this money? And again, it's like, if you look at it that way, you're not taking a very long view, because it's not Netflix, you're not just getting content, but it's like, you're getting something more that you can be a part of. And I think in this world where it's there's an informal community, it's more of a formal community. And I think that's where, if we grow our ranks, then there'll be more competition to be on committees, or there'll be new subcommittees, or there'll be new, hey, I want to get involved here. Hey, I want to do this. I would say, to me, that's the paradigm I'm trying to change, or what I want to see differently is, you've been to Meet Magento events, Matt.
Yeah.
I've been to Meet Magento events. I've sponsored Meet Magento events. I've poured tens of thousands of dollars into going to these Meet Magento's events. And it's not because I got something back out of it. It's because I wanted to make sure that community stayed alive, or I supported the organizer and what they're doing, or the city it's in, or whatever. Or for example, why did I sponsor Meet Magento Brazil this year? I'm not in Brazil. I don't have customers in Brazil. It's because I believe in the organizer and I believe in the community down there. And I work with people in Brazil, but it's not only place I work with people. Just so why? It's about the rising tide lifts all our boats kind of mentality. So number one, if you create a stronger ecosystem, it's better for the longevity of your store, of your platform, of your business. And so again, the more direct involvement people have, the more they'll care about that. That's why there's block associations. That's why there's HOA is a different story, but that's why there are local organizations that help beautify their own communities, because then you have a more vested interest in the health of your community. And so I think if we just look at this as a global community, and a healthy one at that, I think it's that's where you really can feel empowered. And so some guy who, look, you're using Magento, you came to a company, you inherited it, your life might suck because you're like, I got to work on this thing every day and it takes me 4 hours to update this or that. But if you just treat it as that, it's just a piece of software I'm using and I go home and don't think about it, fine. But if you want to actually take that knowledge you're gaining every day and that expertise you're using every day and put it towards something good, that's a way. So for example, I think any corporation could sponsor their employees to join. And I remember what I was going to say now about the Meet Magento events. I want to see those directly tied to getting more members too, because if you are there, you could become a member there. And that's the Meet Magento events are put on by license from the association. So I think if we connect the dots more, and I think if we tell companies why they should have their employees join or their business owners join and put some pride in it, because it's a 501c6, it's for member benefits. So if you're a business owner, it only makes sense for you to be a member. Or if you're a business leader, it only makes sense for you to be a member because it's part of your overall professional assurance.
Yeah, totally. And I think that
was all good.
No, that's great. I mean, it got me thinking about the power of the community and the power of the brand, but also the durability of the solution. Like if you're invested in this solution as an agency or as a merchant, then you're going to want to get the most value out of this, and the relevance of Magento in the ecosystem and durability as a solution moving forward for the years to come. The community will be instrumental in making sure that that relevance stays high, that thought leadership stays high, and the brand awareness stays high, because all of those things are going to help out the merchants and the agencies.
Yeah.
And it takes the entire village to do it, because this is a not-for-profit. So it's open source and it's not-for-profit. So if you're signing up for this platform, this is, I would say, this isn't a hard sell, but a soft sell. This is also a responsibility you have, because you're getting the benefits of this open source software. So your commitment as a payback is to join the association. And not only are you going to benefit directly, but I think, that's the vibe of open source. We're all in this together.
Yeah, and I'll just say I do not represent any official viewpoints of the Magento Association. I'm just a guy. I'm speaking just as a person now. This is a hard sell. You should join. You should give a damn.
Yeah.
And then as a member of the membership committee, I'll say we want you to join and we'll help make sure those benefits are felt. But that's exactly why there's trade associations for every single industry. The construction association, the restaurant association, the hotel association, medical. Every industry has it. E-commerce has it. But a lot of it's dominated in the Amazon seller world and that world. There's different layers to e-commerce. So I don't know if there's an open source e-commerce platform users association, but there definitely is a Magento association, and you should be in it so you can advocate for your needs.
Yeah. Also, to me, open source is one of those beautiful global anomalies where it's not necessarily money that's the primary motivator. It's a community of people voluntarily contributing their effort to make the platform work, to grow the community, and it ends up running most of the internet, which is a pretty amazing thing, right? You take Linux and you take PHP and you take, WordPress, which is a lion's share of the websites out there.
JavaScript,
right?
Like React, Next.js,
Yeah, it's incredible, really, because if you think about, most of the major innovations, they get locked up into some for-profit, quarterly profit corporate entity who controls everything. This is actually a global community doing it on a volunteer basis, and it's incredibly powerful.
Yes, and also if you think about it, there's no open source software usually that didn't have a for-profit company connected to it,
right,
or some for-profit flavor, right? Like, how there's open source distributions of Linux, there's for-profit distributions of Linux, or how Next.js is owned by Versal, and Versal is a delivery provider, right, for hosting and so on and so forth, and how Facebook created React for their benefits, right? Meta created that, but then they gave that to the world. And so that's had a lot of benefits, and on and on and on. I don't think people just associate it with free, but innovation happens because of commerce, because of global commerce needs.
Yeah.
and technology is driven in that way.
And it
Meaning,
also
like-
it's a great opportunity for young people to learn too. Whereas closed systems, like you have to go through some kind of gatekeeper to get even access to software. This is like you could just start doing this tomorrow on your own.
And that's why I want to shout out. I forgot. It's not public knowledge yet, but there's a certain member of the community working on some cool stuff so that you could freely use Magento as a hobbyist and get your hands dirty and get it like, it's not public, so I can't say it. Well, it might be as long as you publish this a week from now, but just to be on the safe side, I can't say it, but you know who you are. And there's someone doing cool things for that exact reason so that the next person who felt like, because in the past, it was easier to spin up a Magento site, like in the Magento 1 days, but you still had to have more knowledge. But like now, because of, like I said, these GitHub code spaces and easier ways to spin it up, never been a better time to get hands-on and play with it. Yeah. And it was something else you said, just, I guess it was more just about the for-profit side of this. It's like, it goes, you just can't have one with the other. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that gets back to Adobe's role.
Get too excited.
Yeah, Adobe plays a very strong role in the ecosystem. I think they're like fundamental to the health of and the future of the platform.
Yeah,
but having that validation of a corporation and that's the other thing. Like Magento, you can have a tiny little startup mom and pop business that's on Magento open source, and then you have these global enterprises using the same underlying system. So it scales all the way from tiny to global enterprise. And like how many people have access to learn that type of software?
That's a really good way to put it too. Like just as a point of pride, right? Like if you're a business owner, you can be assured that your decision is shared by much more senior business leaders for different reasons, or not more senior, but people who have a lot bigger business missions to fulfill, and there's different flavors for it. And that's what I mean. Like there was a time when Magento was harder to use for smaller businesses. Like when Magento 2 first came out, it was kind of like that's where some of these reputation hits came from. But now, like I said, the playing field's been leveled, and it really is an easy time to adopt it. And there's a lot figured out. And I think that's the beauty of an open source platform. And that's why I fell in love with Magento, is because any challenge you have, there's probably someone else going through the same challenge. And there's help for you out there, and you're not alone. And I think like that is, some of the fun of e-commerce altogether, but that was why I specifically really liked Magento, is because I was like, if we're encountering this, we're probably not the first person that encountered this problem.
Yeah, and it's never been easier because basically you can just ask Claude. I hate to say it, but
that too.
Like the LLMs have made it much easier to get the solutions quickly. Whether or not they're right or you should implement them, that's a whole other thing. But, in terms of like research and learning and planning, it's never been easier. And deployment, honestly.
Shout out to all the great people deploying Magento as well. A lot of good hosting providers that are the backbone of keeping people's sites online as well.
Yeah. Well, awesome.
This conversation flew by. Yeah.
Maier. No, this was great. This is exactly what this was perfect. I wanted to talk about memberships. You gave the hard sell. That's good. I gave the soft sell. We both did it, but
both sells. Yeah.
It's think of it as a light responsibility. You get a lot of good vibes back. You're going to get a lot of learning. You're going to meet cool people. That's the other thing, is the association. For a long time as an entrepreneur, I felt like I was on this island doing stuff by myself, and I couldn't really talk to anybody who was like struggling with the same things or, in the same world. And you go to the association and you're like, oh, these are my kindred spirits. These are all the people that I can hang out with. They know the struggles I've had, and we can talk about the same stuff. And it's like a great place to meet people. Yeah.
I was just saying this earlier when I was at a partner day where you and I first spoke. And I was like, oh, like, you're the man. Like, you approached me in a way that was very colloquial as colleagues. But when you see people just on the internet, you see them one way. But when you meet people, it's different. And so it's like the more forums we as people have to connect, like in person or in digital, it really could be a difference maker in your entrepreneurial struggle, your personal struggle, life. Like, I'm a member of this Magento-based Slack called Mage Chat, which is not the association Slack. There's people really commiserating or sharing experiences. It's just like imagine if you didn't, there's that's like people get real meaning out of being a part of something. And that's aside from the association. It's just what it gives you. And I wanted to just go back over one point because I remember what I was going to say now. Think about why Varian, Roy Rubin, Yoav, Boris, Dimitri, like when the software was founded, when they first invented it, it was a business solution because they needed to sell projects to clients. And so they invented Magento because it was a better solution than the other things that were out there. And so I'm trying to line up where that fit in our discussion, but like think about the spirit in which it was created. It was to solve business problems, both as a person who's delivering e-commerce software, but for the users of it, it was great. And so that speaks for itself. It grew from some really good foundational story. And so like if you're using it today, that's part of your story, because if you're using it right or you're using it to success, it provides a backbone that helps take care of your family and your employees and your customers. And there's a lot of people happily using it. And so it gives me a great point of pride that I've spent a good part of my career around Magento. Like that's why I founded my company, was called Mage NYC in the first place. Because I was like, I like making websites, I like helping people, and I like Magento. Let me start something based on that, right? In like New York City and Magento. And so much promise is there.
Right on. So since you're wearing that t-shirt, why don't you tell us about some of your charitable work? Because I know that you're invested in that.
Thank you. I'm wearing a t-shirt which represents Hearts of Commerce, which is an initiative I started around raising awareness about genetic heart disease in the commerce world. I have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It affects 1 in every 250 people, and only 15% know it, and it can be fatal. This is a leading cause of like sudden cardiac arrest in young people, sudden cardiac death in young people or people of all ages. And so it's like very important that you're aware of your family's heart health history. So for example, if you've had a relative or someone that passed away or had other heart conditions, that's where you begin as like a conversation with your doctor. And also I advise anyone, before you ever get diagnosed with anything, you'll get life insurance first, because you can't get life insurance once you're diagnosed with a heart condition. Fun fact, found that out the hard way. But the real point I'm trying to make is that Hearts of Commerce is the fact that we as an e-commerce community, like you said, just 5 billion in services delivered around Magento. So imagine the billions and billions and billions and trillions of commerce dollars out there, and then the tech companies and the solution. So there's millions of people employed in e-commerce, and there's companies that have a lot of budgets. And so the goal is to take a company like Adobe, a company like Klaviyo, any kind of software companies and tech companies, and have them take the Hearts of Commerce pledge, which is a non-binding pledge, but it's to be more, make it, support the employees that do have heart conditions, help the overall heart health of your company, because it's factually proven that companies that invest in that have better performing employees and do better. And all these like things like that, down to direct action, down to direct appeal, down to these legislative changes, like where you're helping fix this broken healthcare system we have and addressing things at the structural level. So I would just love to see more involvement from these companies in that. And so so this is something I've been working on for the last 3 to 4 years. And I hope to get to the stage this year where I'm doing more direct appeals around that pledge, or getting more companies to globally support heart health awareness.
Right on, man. Walking the walk.
Thank you.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. Do it because it's the right thing. And for all the other reasons Maier said. But, but do it because it's the right thing to do. And join the Magento Association because it's the right thing to do. Particularly if you've been sitting on the sidelines, you're running an agency, or you've got your immersion out there. Join, learn, come to the events, listen to the podcast. You're probably sick of me, but that's okay. And then, come check it out.
MagentoAssociation.org.
There you go. All right, Maier. So this is Maier Bianchi. One more time. His agency is called Bemeir. They're in New York City. They do a lot of kick-ass work. Check them out and join the association, as we said. And that's it for today's episode. Signing off. This is Matt Harris, the Magento Association podcast. Check us out wherever you check out podcasts, YouTube, and magentoassociation.org. Thanks.
Spotify, Apple. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, right on.